Whether it's, you know, the Obama image creating a whole new audience that they go, all right, this is a mainstream candidate. He's a unique candidate. He did things differently. But then if you read about my history and that I have a very deep arrest record and all this, that I was able to insinuate myself in the way I did in that campaign. And then you look at my history. I think it would change the way people think about how you know, very lowbrow street culture and very mainstream things can interact. And I think that compartmentalization and narrow-mindedness are the enemy. So I love the idea that the Obama poster could bring a new audience to me. Am I going to start doing like, hey, let me do your political portrait for a living and just like cash in like your logo and name here? Like, no, I'm not going to do that. I actually, you know, felt like Obama was really special.
You want to just comment quickly? Can I just comment on that a little bit? And that is, I think, that also doesn't just bring people to your work, but it also brings people into this whole culture and scene and enables people to see it in a different way. Which is another thing is like, because I encounter a lot of haters in a sense, who see my film and it's just like, well, you know, what about all these sellouts in your film and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, what are you fucking talking about, sellout? I mean, most of these people are struggling to make a living. And yes, there's Banksy and maybe Shepard can have a kid and, you know, feed the kid now, or maybe a little better than that.
How many kids, you know?
But most street artists who actually have a show or two are barely struggling, and maybe for the first time in their life can actually save a little money for their kids or for later or something. Like Black Lorette is a great example. And I like that, because we were talking about the market, I'll talk about the market a little bit. And in response to those, and I don't think there's a lot of haters here, but I think there's a lot of haters in the culture out there at large. And this kind of boat, this is the one place that the rising tide does. It hasn't worked in the rest of the economy, but it does, I think, work in this economy, that the rising tide does lift other boats, that it has, this whole recent scene has enabled a lot of artists to make a living. And I think that's a really
How has your association with the urban art scene affected the market for your work?
The same. I mean, it's exactly what you said. The rising tide helps everybody. I think it's the audience. I think that's the nice thing, is that along with you've been working for a long time. Lots of people back there working for a really long time. And people have grown up looking at this stuff. There's a whole educated audience now with a bit of extra money, a book or two, to throw at some art, and that's great. They have a whole new way of looking at art.
Also, they don't even need, the beauty of it is you don't really need an education.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, the art world is forever being accused of being insular and elitist, which of course is partly, like everything else, is sometimes true and often not true.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is there's no like accompanying museum text, there's no audio tour with somebody telling you what it means. You're on your way to work, and you see it, and you decide what it means. And it maybe means something else because you pass it every day for 60 days, and now it starts to become part of, you know, your life. It's not just, I mean, those kinds of things that you don't have to have an art background, you don't have to have taken day one of any kind of art appreciation, you have to be able to see. And that's it. And it can mean something to you, and I think, you know, that, you know, is exactly, and it, you know, rises all rising tide, all both culturally as well as economically, that it's not just that maybe there's a little extra bit of a market for some of the people that are struggling, but that as a cultural topic of discourse, we all have that in common. If you leave your house, you've seen this work, you know, and that, you know, there's something there.
We have a lot of people that have questions. I'm going to try to take a couple questions here.
This question is for Shepard. I was curious, part of what I love about the urban art world and what I think is also kind of considers it, or is a movement, whatever you want to call it, is that it's public art. It's the art of the people, and in a sense, it is a revolution against the elitist gallery movement to a certain degree.
Show there.
And what was that?
Show the art.
Well, that's exactly the question. I was wondering, how has the fact that, and I think it is truly a new movement in art, a new breakthrough in art, like Impressionism or like Cubism. You know, we have urban art, people taking art out to the streets for the pure love of art, not for, you know, all the status and all of that. So how has it changed now that, how has it changed you as an artist, or how do you think it impacts different artists now that it is being accepted? I mean, I've grown up with friends that were graffiti artists back in the day, and suddenly now they're having shows in London. And so how has that impacted the art and affected the movement, in your opinion?
Well, I think that there are a lot of different factors. For me, now when I go to DC, Boston, London, I bring 3 friends with me, and we rent a van and fold up ladders, and we go out and we crush it. And we have, it's more than just me with no money for a rental car walking with a bucket, able to cover like 2 square miles. I'm covering the whole city. So my ambitions have been able to be satisfied by having a little bit of a budget based on selling art, which is awesome. Some other people just see art, street art, as a stepping stone to the very status that you're talking about, which always disappoints me, because I got involved in this because I'm a populist. Of course, I'm 38 years old. I've been arrested 15 times. I have 2 kids. And I've been doing this for almost 20 years. And I've put my wife through a lot of stress to have her have to endure my street art career is more than I would ask of most people. But I still love doing it, and I love that I can do the gallery work too. So it hasn't really changed much about me at all. But I do think that when there's money involved, whether it's the first wave of punk rock, when there was people just did exactly what they did because there was no potential for commercial success. Early hip hop, the same thing. There's the potential for people's agendas to be corrupted by the influence of money, but it's way too late for that for me. But I think everything's got its good and bad. I totally agree that why shouldn't a street artist be able to survive? I think that's really great. The people that I read criticizing it, I think, why don't you go and write your hey critic.
Yeah.
Why don't you go out and write your diss of this artist in chalk for the next 20 years on the sidewalk without being paid?
First of all, I basically do. Well, you're a good writer too, buddy. So.
The gentleman with the sunglasses here has been waiting for a while.
I feel like this is America. It's about like you want people to buy in to your product and you want to sell out your product. And if you want to use it to buy a villa or you want to use it to make more product, that's what we've all learned, There was a time when the wealthy would go, I want to go see Michelangelo's studio because I can afford whatever I wanted to make. And, there was the wealthy, they were doing their thing, collecting their stuff they were being snotty about, or snooty is the word. Then, I see the Wild Wild West, people start selling their snake oil. And you put the banner on the side of the cart and you roll it around the country. And the more people see it, maybe they want that snake oil. Maybe it works for them, maybe it doesn't, And I think that's where we are now. It's like when you see all this wheat paste, you see all this graffiti. You know what? I like that. I'm down with that. Can I get on a t-shirt? I can afford a t-shirt. Can I get buttons? Can I get stickers? And if they could, before I think we started calling it advertising art, there was just cubism, expressionism, blah, blah, blahism, and thatism. But now it's pop art, now it's urban art, now it's graffiti art. And I think why we're running away from graffiti or street art is because fine art galleries, where some people are able to get into, just turn their noses up at the word graffiti because of like the illegal whatever it connotates. And yeah,
There's
it's
also
pretty much what I
much
said.
that kind of like, they like that, right? They think of it as edgy, and it's kind of like this neutered edginess, like all of the crazy chaos of graffiti without having to go someplace with a flashlight in the middle of the night, right? It's like, they bring, it's like a zoo where you can get really, really close to a dangerous animal at real personal risk to your safety. I feel like.
Question in the back here.
Yes, so hi. Thank you all for being here. I have a question about the marketability of urban art, which I would venture to say has a certain sentimentality for some of us who have a certain age. You know what I'm saying? Like if you grow up here, y'all remember like at the 5 and the 110, skeleton head with the, the rain hat, or the cats on the, the 5, stuff like that. you know, even if those artists aren't being represented in the, you know, fine art scene or in galleries or whatever,